Mexico is a country with a vast diversity of cultures. In the country, 54 different indigenous American languages are spoken. The Nahuatl is one of the most important, the Aztecs warriors being members of this family. The different Nahuatl communities cover the country from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico and as far south as El Salvador in Central America. One of these groups, the Nahuatl of the Huasteca region, synthesizes the struggle of the Huastecan Confederation. Dignified in their struggle, the Huastecans can be observed as a group of ancestral tribes that represent the problematic integration of diverse people inhabiting the same territory. The interethnic relations provide the dynamic of the Huastecan society. 5 different languages come together within 5 states of the Republic, providing clear examples of the cultural, economic, and partisan politics of rural Mexican society. Tenexco, an ejido at the municipality of Atlapechco, undergoes a turn of power, no longer recognizing the Mexican ejido system. This return to tribal holdings has called forth old heroes as harbingers of the changes. Banners of Zapata fly in the breeze. The Huastecan Indians, the focus of the shift, are divided amongst themselves. What other veins of conscience are reflected in this eruption? South into Tabasco and Chiapas, the great Mayan civilization now represents a little less than 2 million people. Their population extends into Guatemala, Honduras, and Belize. Of these Mayans, the Chantals of Tabasco comprise a forgotten community which faces enormous crises similar to those plaguing other Indian populations in Central America. The greatest proportion of Mexican oil discoveries has been made on Chantal lands, resulting in tremendous inflation of property values, irreversible pollution of agricultural areas, and mounting waves of unemployment and violence. The Saltal Indian community is of Mayan origin and resides in the state of Chiapas. The Saltals of the village of Tenajapa and surrounding hamlets gather annually in a week-long festival to pray for peace and freedom in the world. The festival involves 5 days of fasting and 2 days of ceremonial indulgence in alcohol and other intoxicants. The social and religious organization of the Saltals takes official structure amid these complex rites. The Tzotziles of Chenaló possess a great social tradition, one of the best preserved of the Mayan cultures in Mexico. Through the years, ancient formulas in the making of fabric dyes have been replaced by inferior, if more convenient, chemical processes. In new working environments, the Tzotziles are recouping old methods and revitalizing the artistic integrity of their products. Important elements in the textile manufacturing processes of other communities are integrated into Chenaló. Great population centers evolved from the beginnings of industrialization with the necessary proximity of manufacturing centers to rivers for the generation of steam power. Unfortunately, when electric power made this proximity and concentration unnecessary, the manufacturing cities already held most political and economic control in the capitalist system. In actuality, these manufacturing centers are the grounds on which unemployment reaches dangerous levels, creating crime, pollution, and prostitution. Mexico City, although a traditional seat of government and culture, is as a manufacturing center a mistake which cannot be repeated. Its population of 23 million in a country of 80 million represents imbalanced growth through wholesale emigration from rural areas and a paralytic slump of productivity in the country as a whole. It affects a complete separation of agriculture in practice and politics in theory, prodding the country along on the fastest road to total economic collapse. The effects of the earthquake of September 1985 have forced the people of Mexico City to apprehend themselves as a swollen congregation of non-producers. Such catastrophic realities compel the remembrance of other equally immense conflicts. Hernando Cortez's celebrated liaison with the Nahuatl Indian girl Malinche, from whom he acquired a comprehension of the nation's language and structure, is a significant totem of the mestizo culture in the history of the Americas. Malinche's resolve to save her people conceived a new race of combined Indian and European blood who would move with the indigenous people to push the Spanish out of the country and foment a transcontinental revolution with the goal of ending European imperialism in the Americas. That long struggle for independence was effectively halted by war between the United States and Mexico in the 19th century, transforming Mexico's status eventually as a fertile nation of practically boundless wealth to that of an impotent straggler in the world community of nations with the largest foreign and domestic debt, the highest unemployment, the biggest, most disaster-ridden city, and the greatest share of human suffering. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, and English participated in the pell-mell rape of Africa for free manual labor in the building of their empires. On the Pacific coast of Mexico, Spanish colonials imported black African slaves to substitute for Indians too weak to withstand their conquerors' savage treatment. Mixtecans in the so-called Costa Chica, or Little Coast, annually present a ceremonial dance in celebration of the Feast of Santiago, depicting the historical conflict of Moors and Christians in the Middle Ages. Subtle elements of this pageant invoke memories of the region's past of colonial exploitation. Today, the descendants of black African slaves are still employed by mestizo landowners and merchants to protect them from the Indians. Trade deficits figure prominently among the problems of so-called underdeveloped communities because production quotas are geared for the most part to the community's own consumption. The traditional crafts of many Indian communities, some of pre-Columbian origin, are not considered for extraneous markets. The ceramics of the Purepecha Indian community of Patamban convey an ancient tradition of craftsmanship. Though of intricate design and great decorative beauty, their low-temperature firing process renders them too unstable for marketing outside the community. Some outsiders concerned with the problem have attempted to introduce high-temperature production techniques without diminishing the integrity of the traditional Patamban designs, but specific demands in the market are beginning to direct production, consequently eclipsing the artistic freedom of the native craftsmen. In Okomichu, on the other hand, a community without a long artistic tradition, the introduction of new crafts has met with great success in just over 30 years. Production of ceramics in Okomichu, a Purepecha Indian community in the mountains of Michoacan, now account for the greater part of its people's income and has achieved an international renown. Ceramics of Okomichu employ biblical themes with demons as central figures, engaged in very strange and sometimes pornographic activities. Ironically, these ceramics are processed at temperatures too low to instill durability, but their unique consumer appeal has assured them ready acceptance in outside markets. In the first century of the Spanish conquest, a debate was contrived among European thinkers on the question of their Indian subjects' humanity. Did they have souls, or were they animals? The advanced coppersmithing and metalworking techniques of the Purepecha Indian community predate the conquest by hundreds of years and are significant of the high state of civilization attained by the indigenous American peoples prior to the arrival of their European masters. In recent years, the Purepeches of Santa Clara del Cobre have been assisted by artists and planners sensitive to creative processes and dedicated to the restoration of a historic reality in establishing a cohesive relationship in the community between agriculture and manufacturing. Consequently, the metalworking guilds of Santa Clara have absorbed waves of farmers eager to learn and exercise a craft in their off-seasons. The successful community of Santa Clara evinces the combination of agriculture and low-end manufacturing as an alternative to the problematic emigration of people from all areas of Mexico to already overburdened urban areas in search of employment opportunities and material advancement. The formulas of 18th and 19th century utopian planners such as Robert Owen have met with great success in this community, promulgating a resurgence of hope for the devastated economy of a beleaguered republic. Incidental to the copper manufacturing activity of the people of Santa Clara is a process by which the Purepeches, the Tzotziles of Chenaló, and the Celtal community of Tinajapa in Chiapas interact in the production of saleable commodities, though separated by hundreds of miles. In further observing the problems of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, we turn from Mexico and its struggles to one of the most beautiful places on earth. The village of Santiago Atitlan is home to the Zutuil, a community of Mayan Indians, and is situated on a placid turquoise lake high in the mountainous regions of Guatemala, surrounded by three visually outstanding volcanoes that, together with the army of Guatemala, guard them. This idyllic setting is an ironic backdrop to the terrible bloody struggles of the Zutuil, a people with ancient social and spiritual traditions. The Zutuil live under total military control in a high-risk guerrilla action area. Routinely exploited for cheap labor by coffee plantation owners, the Zutuil fishers and craftsmen slave for meager subsistence. The Zutuil have no land on which to harvest their own food. The Zutuil ancestral lands were long ago sold to foreigners or grabbed in giveaways to the whites and Ladinos in insidious legal maneuvers of a cash-hungry government. The Zutuils combine ancestral religion with Catholicism because through liberation theology they are allowed to keep their traditions, and because the Catholic Church is with the poor in open opposition to the radical Protestant ruling sect, which through the army reinforces puritanical economic policies to the routine benefit of the rich. Catholicism is openly persecuted here. Priests are coolly assassinated by paramilitary groups supported by the army. The official policies of the government of Guatemala present the Zutuil with three choices: work for little pay, rebel, or disappear. The borders between states and nations which define and contain the identities and possessions of all people have been compromised by the emergence of a global village of commercial and informational exchange. The individuality of a people is conditional, subject to the availability of choice in the environmental reality. But we exist today in a world where any people's struggle affects the condition of another, and environments collide in a universal human reality. The struggles of the indigenous people of the Americas are our own.
Señor Jesucristo, Señor Padre Eterno, San Miguel Arcángel, Santiago Apóstol, San Simón, San Judas, Tadeo, Catpipa, Herbe, Guateña, Chávez, Shahu presente, su bendición, Elsa. Señor, pecador,